You and I keep referring to option two because it's been so fundamental in our journey and our understanding, and it's at the heart of what I want to talk to you about, because it's about whole family work, and so much of your work is about either whole family or whole systemic working and integration. It's, you know, it's not this isolation that we've now been unpacking. But maybe we should just very briefly explain to people what we mean by what option two was, because it was unique. You know, you talked about the work you were doing in social services was unique, but it was even more unique from the point of view, and people are still shocked when we say to people that, well, the preferred model here is that one worker has a caseload of one family for, you know, for up to 6 weeks, you know, and people are going, what? They just work with one family? So maybe we should just explain a little bit about it, you know, because it was so unique, and it's still so unique in one way. Yes.
Yeah. So I mentioned that we were out of step with colleagues, so same organisation, out of step. And so what Children's Services wanted from us was an immediate response, because it was a crisis for the child. And what we needed from them was to understand the nature of the change for the parent. And what needed to happen was that we had a better beginning, and that people understood the importance of people managing their own risk towards their outcome. So it's not an event, that change. Yes. It's a process, but you keep things safe along the way from the family's point of view. So there was a day when one of my staff came to me and with a referral again from Children's Services, and she said, I've met the mum. She said, if I was going to make a difference here, I'd have to work just every day with her for the next few weeks. If we were going to get to the point where her children are not removed, that's what I need to do. So I said, well, that's what we need then. That's the service we need. So we developed that approach. We looked at home builders in America. We looked at solution focus, MI, every element of evidence of what works. But then we set it within a system that was appropriate and timely for the family. So the idea of the title option two was saying to our colleagues, at the point that you're about to remove children, there is another option, and come to us, and then we will do some intensive work. So we had a team of excellent staff with a very clear model of intervention over 4 weeks. They'd work one family at a time, 24/7. So that was the other thing that surprised everybody. Yes. So there was no 9 till 5. There was no switch off on Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock, and refer on to the emergency duty team. We were it for the duration of that 4 weeks. And the families all had the workers, option two workers' mobile phone number. There was a huge amount of safety planning right from the beginning, that the family said, okay, how are we going to get through tomorrow? How are we going to get through the next day without us having an explosion that ends up in violence and risks our kids? So let's hold that in the initial focus. Then when that's calmed down enough, we move on to thinking about them as a family, how they function, their values, their strengths, where the priority risks are for them, how they're going to overcome them themselves with us alongside. So we get to that real depth with families, and then they begin to put alternative behaviours, which they have never had an opportunity to do, put those alternative behaviours into practice with each other, whilst holding a safety net of their safety plan. So the risks were very minimal because we were alongside them in the safety plan. Yeah. So if things got difficult, if someone did have too much to drink, come back, violence was potential, the children all knew what to do. They knew who to go to, what to ring, who to ring, as well as the therapist or the worker. So what we also did was say, while we're doing this intervention, we understand that other things are going on with other workers, but we are going to be the main thing. And actually, so I'll just stick to the model. So 4 weeks in, we've reached outcomes, family functioning, children thriving, key issues resolved. And then we'd stop the deep intervention. We come back in a month, we come back in 3 months, 6 months, and a year. And those visits were to check how things were going. What is it about you that's keeping this change going? What are you facing in terms of challenges? What plans have you got to deal with those? 6 months, there was sometimes a bit of a wobble for people, so we might go back in and do 2 or 3 days. At a year on year, 10 years of option two's life before it became IFSS in Wales, 75% holding their outcome behaviours and functioning at a year on. So what we were saying to our colleagues, it feels like a long time, 4 weeks with one family. How long would you be working with that family?
It always made, so I was going to say, it was always made sense to me because, at the time when I was working with people who were perhaps being given labels by others as most complex and or had lots of needs and stuff, you'd go and meet them, and one of the first things stopping them actually achieving anything was the fact that they would have anywhere between 6 to 10 or 12 appointments in a week with 6 to 12 different people, and they spend nearly the same amount of time as you're describing, but going round in the end to achieve 10 different 45-minute conversations rather than getting the benefit of 500, 700, 1,000 minutes worth of one conversation that could actually develop into something meaningful, of course. Yes,
exactly, and go so deep. So that had been the previous structure, is there'd be a scattergun referral approach, and people get tied up in all of those, and then their ability to be a better parent was judged on whether they turned up to any one of those things.
Yes.
So it was so challenging for people, working with a mum who was self-medicating really for her mental health problem, but had 2 children, one with special needs. They had to go to different schools, and it was being demanded of her that she turn up at 10 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon to pick up the drugs she'd need from the clinic that would prevent her self-medicating. Well, those 2 times with 2 money, with 2 children in different parts of Cardiff in school, it's not possible. No. But the people who were on the receiving end are saying she missed her appointment again, and it was
coming back to what we said earlier, would even then ascribe the label of unmotivated, doesn't want to change, She
loved her kids. Loved her kids, felt so much for them. Yeah. So we in option 2 was able to shift that really quickly, and she moved to a very strong place. So you have to start where people are, not assume that services define motivation. You have to start where people are, and that this 4 weeks enabled you to truly do that. The trust that builds between one worker and one family is unprecedented, and that trust provides total disclosure. So within a week, you know everything. And when that deep disclosure comes, there was masses of supervision back in our team, shared reflective practice where we taught that through. And the question for all of us would be, does that disclosure indicate a new issue that we have to rethink, or can that be wrapped up in the intervention? Let's not knee-jerk here. But then we had to consult with all the other professionals around the family to help them understand that this is still conditionally safe. So there was a lot of the evidence that the system was the problem, not the workers within the system and not the families within the system, but the system itself was the problem.